How are we doing tonight? I'm Aaron, and this is your new favorite Colts podcast, brought to you by Pro Football Spot. Once again, I'm Aaron. I'm joined tonight by Jeff and Dalton, and we're going to talk some Colts football. Let's get to it.
What's going on?
So I got an interesting matchup tonight. So we got a lot to talk about, some notable cuts, some moves, some games, some all sorts of news. All right. So obviously, I guess the big topic, Colts, Bengals, Thursday night football. A lot of guys playing for a spot tonight. A lot of guys who aren't able to come out tonight due to injury, which is unfortunate, but that's the nature of the game.
I think I saw Robert Mathis is not going to play.
Yeah, I believe Robert Mathis and obviously Mewhort's out. Costanzo will not be playing tonight.
Andrew Luck will also not be playing. He'll be on the sideline.
So a few guys not going to be making the start. Obviously, safety Desmond Southward, kind of a special teams type of guy, will not be playing tonight. Was put on IR recently.
Yeah, that was a big hit to the Colts. He was actually playing pretty well here in the preseason.
Definitely. So it's always rough to see young promising guys put on IR. But like I said, it's the nature of the game. You see it all the time. A couple guys I guess that won't be playing tonight. Jonathan Harrison will not be playing. Mewhort obviously out with that injury. Costanzo not playing. So I think we've seen some shoddy play from our running backs thus far, and I don't expect that to change a whole lot, especially with Frank Gore probably not going to see the field too much tonight. I wouldn't expect the run totals to be too high. But I think one of the guys that has impressed, me at least, and I look forward to some big things tonight is quarterback Stephen Morris. Guys playing some.
Fun fact for you, Aaron. Steve Morris has actually been the leading rusher for 2 out of the last 3 games. Last week was the first game all preseason where he was not the leading rusher for the Colts.
I mean, it's interesting. You don't want that to be the case, but I mean, he's playing well. He's not turning the ball over. He looks real comfortable back there. The guys seem to respond well to him, and I think there's been some accuracy issues with him, but at the same time, you're also hoping you never have to see him once the regular season starts.
But has he played well enough to take over the backup spot is the question. Because he's looked darn good these first 3 weeks.
Just the fact that he's a little bit more mobile than Tolzien is, that makes me want him on the roster more. Like Aaron said about the inaccuracy stuff, I mean, Tolzien's been like that too this preseason, so I mean, that goes both ways. And Morris has just been, I find, more impressive. Just he's been making good throws. He seems like he has some good chemistry with the receivers, especially Rodgers. They've been hooking up a few times there. So obviously, I'd want Morris to get the job, but it seems like it's already almost chosen that Tolzien is going to be the guy. I just wonder if they're going to take 3 quarterbacks just because they see potential in Morris. I'm not sure though.
Definitely.
I think tonight will have a big impact on that decision. And I don't see them keeping 3 quarterbacks with the injuries the way they are on the offensive line. I think, if anything, they'll keep Scott Tolzien and move Morris to the practice squad.
I think last year, I know we had 3 on towards the end of the season, between, having Luck, obviously, Hasselbeck, and then Charlie Whitehurst, and then they moved to, the 2 guys at the end of the. Yeah.
Josh Freeman, right? Yeah.
Yeah, pulled him off the street. I think with that, it's rare, but because Hasselbeck was so, fragile at the time, it was necessary. And I wanted to point out regarding Stephen Morris, I actually did a little bit of research and found out that through 3 weeks of preseason, he's 19 for 31 passing for 314 yards. He's got 3 touchdowns, no picks, and he has 5 attempts rushing for 46 yards and a score there as well. So I mean, for a guy who a lot of people probably haven't even heard of, it's really impressive to see him come in and not make mistakes. Not that he's playing lights out football, but he's not making mistakes, and that's really what you want to see this team do. You feel like when they're playing clean football, when they're having fun, when stuff is coming together, that's like my favorite Colts football to watch.
I think what you said too about him not making mistakes, I find that that's very crucial. Just because if it were to happen, let's just hope it doesn't, like last year where Andrew Luck would get hurt again, he'd have to come in. I feel like that'd be a lot of him just keeping control of the game. Don't lose the game for your team because they have the receivers that can really just he can throw short passes and they can really do well with that, especially with Ty, and hopefully we'll see that with Dorsett this year. I mean, Moncrief seems to be the more of the deep threat target. Probably not the best receiver to be like. He's not the stereotypical type of deep threat receiver, but that's who he is for us. So if it were to happen, like I said, where Luck would get hurt, I think he would be okay just because he can make those short passes and control the game just because he doesn't make too many mistakes.
Well, worst case scenario, we always have Pat McAfee as our emergency quarterback.
Rest easy, knowing that Boomstick is at the ready.
Nothing else. He can just punt the ball down the field.
And too, obviously something that's been obvious, and you have to point out in the elephant in the room has been the rookies, or the rookie mistakes, and even the mistakes with the veterans with the penalties, and it's been real sloppy. I mean, there's been a lot of penalties, getting called, and maybe the officiating's not perfect, but the holding calls and the false starts, and you really a lot of that you can say, well, it's the younger guys not really accustomed to it, but you have to look, too, to the coaching and the discipline that these guys are put through, and you got to wonder, is the coaching not tough enough? Is it too soft? Are these guys just, not putting two and two together? I mean, but that's, drive-killing penalties where you go from, you're first and goal on the 13, and then you're first and goal on the 26, and you just can't put it together. You got 3 plays to go 26 yards. It really kills you in those crucial situations.
And it's not like we're good in the red zone to begin with anyway, so when you take a penalty like that, a holding penalty on the offensive line, that's just going to kill you.
Right.
Well, and one major stat that stood out this preseason is against the Ravens. The Colts amassed 9 penalties for 101 yards. That's a huge hole to climb out of.
I mean,
go ahead.
Yeah, that's nuts. I mean, it's 100 yards. You just gave up a football field worth of yards. You can't be doing that and expect to win the game. You got to keep it under wraps.
Well, the positive is they only lost that game by a late field goal that was missed from 60-some yards.
Wasn't it like 19-17 or like 19-18, something like that, the final score?
You would have liked him to make that field goal, but...
Yeah, but, there at the end, you kind of knew that was a long shot.
Yeah, I enjoy seeing him win those games, but at the end of the day, I see a lot of ruckus happening, and some of these groups that I am associated with, and you see all these people panicking, and I just got to tell people, you can't freak out. There's penalties, there's injuries, but you got to keep it cool, because ultimately, and one thing I try to tell people is, at least if I put myself in the position of a professional athlete who is starting for a team, as a starter, you're starting, and I don't think you're playing 100% every play because you're not playing for anything. So I think, I don't think you're getting 100% from your number ones while they're out there. I think, and that's the thing, you start to see some consistent football come in when the rookies come in and they're fighting hard for that roster spot, and you got your draft picks and your undrafted free agents. That's when you see physical football, because those guys are flying around trying to make a spot. So I encourage Colts Nation not to worry. I think, there's some injuries, there's some penalties, but I'd say they got one more week and then just a little bit of time to smooth it out. And I think hopefully by week 1 we'll be at least partly ironed out to the point where we can compete. I would hate to see us go 0-1 starting off against Detroit, but I guess we'll save that for later.
Well, let's get into some of the roster cuts to watch here. The first one would be wide receiver with Tevin Smith and Chester Rogers, and I guess Quan Bray.
Yeah. I like Quan Bray. I feel like he's played really well at that special teams, that kick returner, punt returner position, but. And, you can make a career off that because you've seen guys like Devin Hester and, Antonio Brown returns punts. Granted, he's like number one receiver in the NFL right now, but I think your cemented guys, definitely Hilton, definitely Moncrief, definitely Dorsett. I'd like to see Quan Bray stay, but I feel like we've seen more out of Rodgers and Smith than we have out of Quan Bray, at least catching the football. There's been more plays by these younger guys who aren't necessarily special team, but more coming in just to play wide receiver.
Well, and what you get out of Rodgers is Rodgers can return punts and kickoffs too, and he's been very, very productive, in the receiving game this preseason. Whereas Bray, somebody who shows a lot of promise, and he's great at the return game, but he's not really produced in the receiving game. Now, I don't think the Colts will cut Bray. I think it'll end up being a combination of Bray and most likely Rodgers, with Smith moving on. But I wouldn't be surprised if they go with a Smith-Rodgers pairing and let Bray walk.
Well, and I think that's the benefit of this year is you don't have, in the past, we had Hayward Bay, we had Andre Johnson, Hakeem Nicks. I feel like this year it's good that your veteran presence is Hilton. You've got Moncrief, you got Dorsett, but it's nice that bottom half, the last two guys are kind of up in the air because that gives you a chance to get these really youthful players in making plays, whereas in the past years you've had Johnson, Hilton, Moncrief, Dorsett, and you've got like one spot, and you've kind of got to decide, all right, who's played the best? I think it's good and it's bad. I'm glad Hilton's a veteran presence. I think that's going to benefit us a lot this year.
I think that Rodgers will be an impact player in the NFL regardless of whether it's with the Colts or whether it's with someone else. He's definitely a player to watch going forward the next couple of seasons.
He's a fast guy, so he can be a playmaker. But I like Smith as well. It just seems like, especially in that first game against the Ravens, I believe, he just seemed like a target machine. Tolzien was looking for him almost every second play. It seemed like his first look would always be to Smith. So I found that to be pretty optimistic about that. But then in the next games, it seemed like Rodgers, like you guys said, was starting to step up a little bit more. So I think it'll be interesting. But I don't think they can go wrong with that. And you guys brought up as well that Rodgers can return. So if they feel like Quan Bray really is only good for those two things, and they feel like Rodgers could do an adequate job at punt and kick return, then I feel like they could probably just let him go and keep Tavon Smith and Chester Rogers just based off because they've had a pretty nice preseason. They deserve to, if not the Colts, I feel like they'll make a squad somewhere else.
Yeah, that first game against Buffalo is who it was.
Oh, Buffalo, yeah.
Yeah, I mean every ball up in the air was just a jump ball to Smith, and he's a big athletic guy.
And they're
There's no doubt about that.
They weren't afraid to target him in the end zone, so I thought that was impressive as well.
Right.
I want to give you guys a bit of a game update. I hate bringing the negatives to you, but Tolzien played well through the first drive, but I guess on a handoff to Turbin, Butterfingers right in the red zone. What did I say? That red zone ball security and the penalties, it's killer. It's killer.
Well, I guess that'll lead us into our next position, is the running backs.
Not making a good case for himself is Robert Turbin right now.
No, we had just talked about this before the podcast.
Ridley is playing. I feel like I should point that out. He's getting to play tonight. I think he actually started. Not really rushed too well thus far, but it's early. You got time. Realistically, the Colts are going to keep, I think, 3 guys on the roster, maybe let one fall to the practice squad. I mean, depending on who it is. I mean, I know if anyone, it's going to be Ferguson. I don't think that Turbin or Todman would be, I mean, are going to stick around if they get cut. But I think definitely 3 spots. Who do you think are going to be those 3 guys other than Gore, obviously? But
Well, I think Ridley has to be in there just because they signed him, and he seems like at the very least he's had his training camp, so he's ready to go in that sense. And then I think they're going to get rid of Ferguson. It seems almost inevitable at this point to me, just by the way that the Colts guys were tweeting as well. Stephen Holder, and all those guys. They seem very likely that it doesn't look like they're going to keep Ferguson.
Unfortunate, considering the lengths they went to get him in the first place.
And just the way they spoke of him at the draft as well. They said they could have got him in, I don't know, the 4th round or something, and they kind of just passed on that point. And they're really lucky that he fell to them and they signed him. But he's not showing too much, and they're not really targeting him in the passing game as well. So I'm not sure, but I don't think he's going to make the final 53 unless he has a big game tonight. But
I envision the 3 running backs that they keep being obviously Gore. That's a no-brainer. I see Ridley. I don't see them signing him, for 1 week just to cut him and get rid of him. That seems a little ludicrous. And then the 3rd guy really depends on how the line performs, in my opinion. Do you need Turbin in there to pick up that extra defender coming on the blitz, or can you have somebody like Jordan Todman, who he's shown flashes of brilliance this preseason. Not with the run game, but you get him in open space and he makes plays.
And that's what we need that second back, I think, to do. Like we were saying before, have to, especially in the red zone, where they've had a lot of trouble in the past years ever since Luck came in. So if he can be like the Ahmad Bradshaw type of running back, I think that would be really useful for the team. So that's why I feel like it could be him, but Turbin's just playing well running, so I feel like he deserves a shot as well. Like a lot of it will come down to tonight as well.
Yeah, I think definitely you've got Gore. Gore has shown us that age is only a number. I think if Ridley can play decent, he'll get the number 2. I would expect the number 3 to probably go to Turbin unless he just absolutely blows it tonight. But, you need that blocking, especially with the offensive line being kind of a question mark still. You've got Dwayne Allen, who can block when he needs to. Jack Doyle can block when he needs to. But you really just wish that your line would do it so that you could use your running backs and your tight ends for, what they're supposed to be used for.
And here's a little bit of a separate kind of tangent to get off onto, but I don't know if you guys have noticed, but this defense this preseason has not been able to hold the edge. It seems like every time we play, a running back bounces to the outside and they pick up 15, 20 yards.
Well,
you guys think it's because Matt is just not playing?
Our best outside linebacker who kind of sets the edge there seems to be Walden, and he's getting a little bit older as well. I think he's 30, 31 now. He's definitely been, I would say, like kind of a player that a lot of fans don't really notice as much, but he puts in the work. He does well. But I mean, if let's just say we would sign Kruger there the other day, I mean, he automatically becomes, if not the best Colts outside linebacker, at least an edge linebacker.
Yeah, I actually did a piece on Walden not too long ago talking about kind of the inconsistency. He's been an all right guy setting the edge, not really been the pass rusher. He's not been real great about getting pressure on, but thus far in the preseason, I mean, like you pointed out, I mean, it's really got to be, it's got to be us setting the edge against these running backs, because in the past, we've lost a lot of games on, because the opposing team's running back, to name a few, when we played Dallas, when we played New England especially, it's always these guys, and all they got to do is get that outside move, and like you said, 15, 20 yards, it's almost automatic.
Well, what scares me, I don't know if you guys have watched the other AFC South teams this preseason, but Tennessee's running backs look fierce. I mean, they're no joke.
Derrick Henry is a great player. I saw him play a few times in college, obviously, and I mean he won the Heisman, so he's no scrub. But I was really surprised, especially with that O line. They took that offensive tackle from Michigan State, I believe. His name, I can't remember his name right now. Exactly, yeah. They took him and they moved their left tackle Lewin, whatever his name is, over to right tackle, and now they seem pretty solid. So they're committed.
Admittedly, I was hoping that we were going to get Conklin, but I was happy with the Ryan Kelly pick.
Well, you know what? I hate to bring this up because it's like a running joke in this part of the country. But you know what? The Jaguars aren't a joke either. I mean, they're not, the 2008 Jaguars anymore.
Definitely.
They could pose a threat if you don't stop the run.
I think that team deserves, they deserve some praise for what they've been able to do in the offseason, going out, getting the likes of Prince Amukamura. You've got Malik Jackson on the line, to Sean Gibson at safety. I mean, you're adding depth in the positions that Jacksonville has, lacked in the past. And, I think Jacksonville easily could be, is the team that not only was the best team in the draft this year, getting Jack and Ramsey and really, these impact guys who can go day one. They're getting Fowler back. It's gonna be a situation where, because they've got Ivory, they've got their pounder back, they've got Yeldon, who's still a young guy who's making plays, and then you've got Houston with Lamar Miller. It's like the AFC South is, I think, the other three teams definitely have the edge when it comes to running back, and it's going to be up to us to set the edge so that we're not giving up 100-plus yards a game, consistently at least. If you give one up every, 7 games, it's not going to kill you, but you just want to make sure that you're the one that's getting, the consistent run stop. I think that's what's killed us in the past.
The funny thing about the 4 teams in the AFC South is Houston, because they're always that team that we're going to beat the Colts, we're going to win the division. There's a realistic chance they could be the worst team in the AFC South this year.
Most definitely.
At the same time, they just seem so stacked as well. At least on defense, they've always been. It seems like Clowney, this is going to be his year. Just off the preseason I've been seeing, he looks really good. And I mean, Osweiler seems to be kind of the butt end of the jokes and everything, but in the last preseason game against the Cardinals there, he was showing off, and they have a lot of good receivers as well. So they're no joke either.
Yeah, I definitely I see this being a tough year for the division. I think the bottom team could still have a fairly decent record for number 14.
Definitely. It's going to be competitive, I think, any way you look at it. Brock Osweiler, obviously a little bit of a question mark. He's had a really, really tough but good preseason. As a Colts fan, you hope they all flop, but ultimately, I mean, it's no longer 6 easy wins on the year, and I think, the days of the Colts owning like these huge records of being unbeaten against division opponents is over, and I'm hoping it's competitive. But as far as Jacksonville goes and Houston goes, these guys, obviously Houston's defense, when they get Watt back, if Clowney stays healthy, they've got Cushing at linebacker, they've got guys who can play. I think it's just a matter of these teams putting it and translating it to the field. Obviously, Tennessee finished last in the league last year for a reason. Jacksonville, not too far behind. They had an all right showing. Houston obviously won the division, but I don't think any of these teams are going to make a huge jump. I can see, definitely an improvement in record. You can't do what Jacksonville did and not at least get a few more wins. But I'm a firm believer in let me see it on the field. Being on paper, it means nothing. So they've definitely done some good things in the preseason, but Jacksonville as a whole has not had a great preseason. I believe, if I'm not mistaken, 0-3 or 1-2 going into this last game. And I believe that the test for them is not only going to be establishing themselves in the division, but being able to beat other teams. And I think they start the season next year against Green Bay, and that's going to be a tough test. That's gonna give them, nothing's going to test their defense like Aaron Rodgers. So I think for them it's going to be translating it. For Houston, this is the first time in years they've had a quarterback whose name I can remember for longer than a week. I mean, it's anyone's division, I think, but I'm hoping as a fan that we can put two and two together and get back on top.
And I mean, at the end of the day, we still have Andrew Luck, so that whether you consider that an improvement or not, I mean, we still have him on the team, but we didn't have him last year. So, I mean, regardless of what they all did, whether it be the draft or free agency, we still got Andrew Luck back. So,
yeah, definitely. That's that alone. I mean,
at times he's our defense too. So, I mean, we're used to it, but I'll take it either way.
Definitely.
Well, I don't. Speaking of Andrew Luck, I don't know if you guys saw the piece I did earlier, but I did a article comparing him to his first 48 games, taking out his injury, season last year, compared to Brett Favre, Peyton Manning, Dan Marino, some of these other great quarterbacks. And one of the biggest knocks on Luck is his turnovers. The first 48 games for Andrew Luck, he has a lower interception rate than all of these guys. So I think that some of this criticism that Luck has got is unfair. And if he can get back on track like he started the first 3 seasons, there's no reason that Indy can't win the division this year and make a deep run into the playoffs.
Definitely.
I think the thing with Andrew Luck is just a matter of, and all fans kind of have this problem, it's just they don't watch the full games. And it's not their fault, it's not their team, they can't watch the full games. So they don't see the details, the little small things that Andrew Luck does compared to other quarterbacks that just makes him so good. And you saw him in that rookie season when he just game-winning drive after game-winning drive, that one in Detroit there.
Oh.
That was crazy. And when you look back to Peyton Manning, nothing against Peyton Manning, but in those games where they were down in the fourth quarter, he often would throw a pick or there'd be a bad play, and that was the end of the game. Whereas with Andrew Luck, you just feel like you have a really good chance of getting the win at the end there. And that's what I feel like people don't take into account with him. They just look at the turnovers, look at the interceptions, especially last year when he was playing hurt the whole season. Let's be honest. So it's just a matter of watching Andrew Luck play. And there's going to be a lot more scrutiny on this year because of the contract. So I feel like people are going to definitely be watching a lot more, and they're going to see just how good this guy is and just how dumb some people seem to be when they talk about Andrew Luck, saying that he's not as good as Matthew Stafford and stuff like that, and that how Tannehill could be better than him. It's ludicrous almost.
Yeah. It's impressive. I mean, he's a baller, and I think I think obviously one of the biggest candidates right now being talked about for comeback player of the year. One thing you have to like about Luck is his amnesia as a quarterback, where he could make. That game against Detroit, I think he threw 3 interceptions, but he just came back, similar to the game against Kansas City, and he just makes the plays he needs to make. It's one play at a time, and he's real special in that regard, I think.
Yeah.
You had mentioned his heroics and his clutch ability that first season. I have it pulled up here. He actually had 7 game-winning drives as a rookie. That's unbelievable.
With a team that drafted him first overall, keep that in mind. With almost as worst team they have now in terms of offensive line, in terms of defense, people just don't understand how good Andrew Luck is.
I mean, you're talking about a 2-14 team who scrapped everything the year he was drafted. I mean, he come in with a brand new system, new players, nothing
Look at
established.
the wide receivers he's working with that year. I think Rick Rodgers was there. T.Y. was a rookie. I mean, he didn't have much.
I mean, his rookie tight ends. His security blanket was Reggie Wayne, and that was definitely a benefit.
Yeah.
But yeah,
they beat Green Bay that year.
Yeah.
Just a drop machine.
Definitely. Definitely drop machine. I mean, oh God, it was ugly.
I remember when they signed him, I liked it just because I remember all the good things he did, and then he just couldn't catch the ball.
No, and it's unfortunate because he's playing all right with Pittsburgh now, but I let him do that. Let
Yeah,
him.
have fun,
Definitely.
have fun there.
All right, guys. Well, you guys have anything else?
Um. Just I guess just a couple things. For anyone who's really looking at that safety position, T.J. Green is looking to be the starter, week one, which is good to get that instant starter value out of a draft pick. Um,
He is so fast. It's like it's like you can see that his speed a lot more than you can Dorsett just so far at least. That's I've noticed his speed. They always say like Dorsett's really fast. I understand that. I just haven't really seen it yet. But with Green, it's obvious. He's
He
so
closes a lot of field real fast.
it's unbelievable. I don't want to make this comparison yet or anything, but I mean he runs like Bob Sanders is. He's so fast.
That's what I was just thinking, Jeff. And I also had the thought he hits like Bob Sanders. He hits
Yeah,
hard. I just
I
hope
hope
he doesn't get hurt like Bob Sanders.
exactly just stay healthy.
um, well, obviously, last week of the preseason here, a couple notable players thus far in the game. Tight end Chase Kaufman has caught um, 2 balls for 35 yards. Smith has had a catch for 7. Other than that, not really a lot of offense going on. Defensively, um, Art Jones is playing. Obviously, we're not going to have him for the first 4 games because of his suspension. But just a lot of young guys getting in here and getting tackles. Quite a few of our young guys with tackles already. So hoping for a win tonight. Hoping to at least clean up on those penalties and really get to translating that stuff come week one. We need to be a winning team again.
Yes.
Amen to that.
I just hope they can avoid injury. Just like I had a dream last night that TJ Green got hurt, so I mean,
Don't you tell me that.
I just want to avoid injury altogether.
Don't do it. Don't do that to me.
I think we'll be okay though. Hopefully.
So yeah. Aside from that fumble, Turbin, I mean, he's got two carries for 14 yards. Not great, but 7 yards a carry. I think one of them, though, admittedly, was an 11-yard run, which happened to be the fumble. But Pat McAfee with a 60-yard boot, not bad.
Pretty good.
Drug test coming.
He's nuts. But just want to make sure there's nothing I'm leaving out here as far as news goes. Definitely, like I said, Costanzo, Mewhort, Harrison not playing. It's going to be the young guys tonight. I think one thing to look for is going to be the corner position. Davis not going to be playing, so look for some guys to kind of be trying to really make an impact tonight. Let's hope that the run defense is able to make a bit of a jump tonight. And ultimately, though, you just want to cut down on penalties. I mean, that alone would have me resting a little bit easier. Because you want to see Chuck Pagano really drilling it into these guys. Like, you can't be making these penalties. It's killer.
Exactly. For week one next week, is there anything you guys are particularly interested in, bearing any injuries this week? Do you anything like maybe what you think the offensive line will look like for those first couple of weeks there without Mewhort?
I'm very interested in not seeing Andrew Luck carted off the field. And scoring more points to the Lions. That's.
I'm just hoping that Wrights is back in time for week one there, and I don't know that left guard. I don't know the guards is just completely up in question right now.
It's definitely going to be a good test. I feel like Detroit is not going to be. I think in that division it's going to be competitive for them, but I think Detroit's a good test. Obviously, you're playing a very capable guy in Stafford. Megatron's gone. So that's kind of a plus, but they still got guys that can make plays.
Marvin, who is it? Not Marvin Jones. I mean, Golden Tate still. Ebron, he's not hurting.
Definitely. So yeah, it'll be a test. I know the last couple of years, the Colts have really had a craving for a Week 1 victory, and I'm hoping that this is our year to finally start off 1-0.
I hope so.
But definitely, so hopefully the game tonight, we end up with a win, and I think Colts fans should rest easy, knowing that this is the team that they have. They got some capable guys, and I think it's going to be a great season to watch.
As long as Andrew Luck's healthy.
As long as Andrew Luck's healthy, I'll raise a glass to that.
Me too.
All right.
Well, this has been the Colts podcast presented by ProFootballSpot.com, and thank you for joining us.